To avoid fainting, keep repeating.
It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
Take as much as you can.
Only a movie.
Hello! Hello! Is anyone there?
Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of the Director Suite cast. I'm here tonight joined with our new podcast host, James.
Hello, how are we doing?
Doing good. So tonight, unfortunately, Glenn was meant to join us, but he's feeling under the weather and he's not feeling in the best mood. So to avoid essentially making our show not sound the greatest, he's decided to step down tonight. And tonight we have James. So James, anything you like to say about yourself?
I am just really happy to be along. I'm a huge movie nut and podcast listener, and I've always wanted to do this. So it's a real honor to be along and just to discuss what we love, which is film. And yeah, I just can't wait.
Cool, awesome. And so I think you're in the right place. Awesome.
Definitely.
Cool. So tonight's episode, I'm going to go through a few things. I guess one of the main features of tonight's episode is we're going to focus on horror soundtracks, or just soundtracks in general, because in the past few years there's been a boom of vinyl reissues, particularly for soundtracks. Companies like Death Waltz and Waxword that just been releasing some pretty crazy stuff over the past few years. That will be coming later in the show. To start off the show, I think we're just going to discuss a few things that we've been doing on the site. Obviously, James and I and Glenn, we reviewed a movie each recently in the past week. My movie was The Raid 2, but James, I believe you reviewed Starlet?
I did. Starlet was a Siren release, and it was a really nice film. It was a story of a young girl who moves to LA and who kind of through different means befriends an elderly woman. And yeah, it was actually quite touching, but the thing that really kind of shocked me was that it was R18. And it confused the hell out of me, I got to say, until I realized why it was R18. But yeah, I think it's a great film. But if they'd cut it a little bit or just kind of looked at it a different way, a lot more people could appreciate the film. I really think it could have been one of those films that would get a lot of buzz if it hadn't had some of the explicit scenes. But at the end, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I saw, that's another thing that confused me when I gave you the review copy. I was like, well, rated R, and I looked at the back and nothing about it seemed too like explicit. It just seemed like a drama, and I was like, well, where does this, it's rated R for actual sexual activity, and is that true to a degree? Like,
oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of it is kind of, the explicit stuff is there. It's not right in your face. I was thinking it was going to be something like more like 9 Songs,
yes,
which came out about 10 years ago now.
Yeah, that's right.
Or Best Moi, or something that was really in your face that made you kind of, gasp. But I won't spoil it. But the set, there is an explicit sex scene, but it's more how an explicit sex scene is presented rather than anything violent or consensual or any, it's about the porn industry, so there's going to be aspects of that.
It's unfortunate because by sounds of your review, this is what I took. It sounded like sort of a modern day Harold and Maude, but with instead of Harold and Maude, you got a younger girl and an older woman.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where the movie really excels, and the touching, aspect of it comes in, not as in physical touching. It becomes a really beautiful, touching story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd recommend people check it out, and forget about the R18 rating. It's really a story of 2 women and their friendship.
Very nice. So that's available from Siren, and I believe it was distributed by Glass Doll Films as the sub sort of contractor. They're actually an upcoming film company in Australia that's going to focus on releasing indie films, so keep an eye on them. So the movie I reviewed was The Raid 2. Have you heard of The Raid 2 at all, James? Or you've probably seen it?
I have heard of The Raid 2. I have not seen it yet, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it because I really enjoyed The Raid, the original, the first part of this series.
Yeah.
Could go on. But yeah, no, I'm really, really excited to check it out.
Because The Raid 2, essentially The Raid 1 was restricted to this building. It was kind of like a video game where they went from room to room, just fighting each other. The great thing about The Raid 2 is that it puts it on a grand scale. So, like, pretty much the whole of Indonesia the whole city is the landscape for the film. And it's more or less, it's kind of like The Departed, but
Right.
it's basically about an undercover. He goes undercover to a crime family to unfold, corruption in the police force, and it's just this epic film that goes. It's about 2.5 hours, and it's non-stop action. It's like every 5 seconds there's something going on. The thing I loved about it is action films usually bore me because if there's too much action. This finds a nice balance, if that kind of makes sense.
Yep.
Because I think when I saw Man of Steel and I saw, punching through walls for 45 minutes, I nearly fell asleep. The great thing about The Raid 2 is that it actually has character development, something that I rarely see in action movies. And it was just, I think it's one of the best films of the year, to be honest.
The director, is he American or English?
I believe he's Welsh.
Welsh.
Yeah, it's just such an odd combination.
Yeah, throws himself in and does a foreign film, with subtitles and everything, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, that's really cool. He must have a great relationship with the people over there.
He does, and I think he speaks the language as well. So he's
Yeah, that would help.
yeah, I think it would
Yeah.
to get respect from your actors.
Totally.
It's I feel as soon as I finish watching it, and it is, if you do like if the only problem with it that you might find is the excessive amount of gore. I mean, it's pretty much a gore fest. Like, there's a large amount of blood, and there's like no mercy to it. So if you like your horror, I recommend it. If you like your action, I recommend it. If you like your drama, recommend it. So overall, it reminded me something like Terminator 2, where the sequel was better than the original.
Oh man, okay.
In my opinion, that was
Right, okay, I'm sold. Definitely.
So I hope it didn't offend you. I hope you think Terminator 2 is better than the original.
Well, I love both Terminator films.
Yeah, same.
Pretty much equally, because the differences are definitely pluses, for each one.
Yep. Exactly. But overall, Raid 2, that was a Blu-ray from Madman, and that came out this week, I believe on Thursday it got released. So by all means, check it out if you're up for something different. And like I said, I gave it a 5, which is extremely rare for me to give a 5. I rarely hand them out, but yeah.
We're not worthy.
We are not worthy.
Yeah, awesome.
So I guess one thing we want to do is give a quick shout out to a local magazine that's been around. It's up and coming, and the creator, it's called Optic Intake, and it's basically kind of like a local version of Fangoria, if I was to describe it. It's not really Fangoria, it's more focusing on cult, trash, obscure horror, not just horror, but obscure films in general. And he's currently published his first issue, which he's been sending around pretty much. It's $15 for the magazine. Jason is the guy who runs it, and he's a really nice guy. And pretty much, I just think that this magazine should be exposed more to the community, because what he's doing is pretty tough gig. I mean, trying to create a print magazine in 2014 relating to a very obscure topic. I don't know. I just think that he's done something pretty brave, and not many people would think of doing something like that, especially in Australia. But yeah,
it's 48 pages long, which is one thing. Like, I was just going over his site, and I was like, "Wow, 48 pages is epic for a I don't know, is it quarterly?"
Yeah, that's that's the plan.
See, that's awesome. I just to get a print magazine again like that and have it so. I think 48 pages is huge. I think that's fantastic.
And full color as well.
Yeah. And it's actually issue 0 is the first issue, which is taking a leaf out of the comic book world, I think.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
So he's only charging $15 for a full color 48 page magazine within Australia. So, don't know any local magazines to this focusing on this sort of topic. Particularly, it appears like he's gone all out, and obviously I will be ordering my copy very shortly. On the topic of horror magazines, you know, a lot in Australia have come and gone. Like you were mentioning something about a Terror. What was the name of it? Terror.
It's called Terror Zone.
Terror Zone, yeah.
And it was, this would have, you know, I'm showing my age here, this would have been in the very early 90s. And it was about classic horror, upcoming horror. So it really went into your Hellraisers and New Texas Chainsaw and stuff like that. And there was, you know, it was posters. It was almost aimed at a very young demographic, which looking back now, I was kind of like, wow, it's very strange to do that, because it was full of just, you know, screenshots and screen grabs of some of those classic horror films, but like really gory stuff. And I've got a few issues back home in New Zealand, in case you didn't get it. So yeah, it's I know that it probably lasted maybe about 10 issues. But again, you know, fantastic that people take the time to put these things into print and put it out there for people to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's interesting how these magazines have come and gone. I mean, particularly in Australia. I mean, it's pretty hard to find that sort of hardcore cult market unless they're obviously like yourself and I. It's pretty difficult, especially like say in 2014. And hopefully it continues, his magazine. I really like to see it succeed because he's put all his time and effort into it. And he's pretty much taking a huge risk with it. So I'm going to put a link on the podcast where you can actually purchase the first issue. Now, obviously, if you're in Australia, he will ship there. He'll also ship internationally as well. And it's a limited edition of 200, so be pretty collectible once it sells out. And yeah, it's just like to mention that.
I'll be getting a copy, definitely. Do you know, John, is Fangoria still printing, or has it gone online?
Yes, I believe so. Last time I checked, that was a few months ago. They're still doing magazines because obviously in this day and age, I thought they'd go web-based, but I think they are.
Okay. And do you remember, it was a UK magazine called The Dark Side?
Yes, I did.
Because that was insanely detailed and had a lot of text. It was, I can't remember, it was probably about 50 pages or something like that. But that was another great horror mag that I used to pick up whenever I could, because it was quite expensive coming from the UK. But they used to do like weekly, sorry, no, it was probably a monthly magazine. They used to do monthly spotlights, and just, yeah, it was a fantastic magazine. So, yeah.
I think I remember it, because I remember being in, obviously when I was younger, I used to go to Borders quite a lot, and they would have these magazines which I'd read. And the problem, and obviously another thing I was going to mention with Optic Intake, is the magazine's only $15. If you go to a newsagent, you'll find Fangoria for like $27, $30, which is, it's just crazy. I think that was the same price as well, in that price range.
Yeah, probably. And the great thing when you do go to the newsagents these days, and it is $27, you're much better to sit down inside and read the whole thing cover to cover, and but if it's only $15, that means you can take it home, you can put it on your shelf, and yeah, collect it
and admire it. Yeah, so issue 0, check it out.
Look at me, Damien, it's all for you.
So I think I'll give this to you because you have a bit more knowledge. I only know about the Freddy Photo Opp, but the recent horror convention that's going to be happening in the US. Would you like to take that away, James?
Yeah, there's it's called the Chicago Flashback Weekend, and it's actually happening, well, in the States this weekend. So
this weekend, yeah.
Yeah, so in the past, from when you hear this, it's the 8th, 9th, and 10th of August in Chicago, and it's pretty much, it's called the Flashback Weekend, which is kind of ambiguous, but it's really a gore fest of people from horror films, some music guests. You've got Zach Galligan from Gremlins, who'll be appearing with Gizmo, and I'm not quite sure if it's going to be one of the cheap knockoff Gizmos or if it'll be a animatronic. And you've got Tracy Lords, who's been in a hell of a lot of probably pretty bad horror films and adult films. Lance Hendrickson is going to be there doing a Q&A, obviously from Aliens and Pumpkinhead. There's going to be
cool.
Yeah, I'd love to sit down and have a chat with him. Apparently he is one of the nicest guys and has a lot of awesome tales and has probably told these stories, hundreds and hundreds of times, but he takes the time, so I've got a lot of respect for him.
Yep.
There's a Cannibal Holocaust Q&A.
That's very cool.
Which would be just really insightful because it's, again, one of those films that its reputation, precedes it quite intensely. Then you've got a Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 reunion.
Oh, yes. I love part 2.
Which there's only 2 people in this reunion. It's not like it's going to be the whole lot. So this is the one that had Matthew McConaughey and Dennis Hopper, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're not going to be there. So
obviously,
if you're heading out, well, Dennis Hopper's definitely not going to be there.
So don't get your hopes up.
No, but so that could be interesting, if only to hear more stories coming out of that set when they filmed.
Yeah.
There's a Hellraiser reunion.
Yes, Hellraiser reunion. That's interesting.
That's got Barbie Wilde and Nicholas Vince.
Mm-hmm.
Can you remind me who those people are?
From the original Hellraiser?
That's what it says, yeah, just Hellraiser.
So what were the names again? Sorry.
Barbie Wilde, who I'm assuming was...
Barbie Wilde. I can't think.
God, what's her name? The creepy woman who lures the...
the aunt.
Yeah, it must be the aunt.
Yeah, the aunt, yes. No, sorry. She's she's one of the female Cenobites.
Oh, wow.
The bald one. Yes.
Yeah. But not but. I was going to say Barbie, but that's Hellraiser 3.
Yeah, Hellraiser 3, yeah.
Wow, okay, that's cool. And then you've got a Children of the Corn reunion.
Yes.
Which has Malachi.
That creepy kid who's looks like he's 30 years old.
Yeah. And he still looks exactly the same. So
John Franklin.
Yeah, he's one of those ageless people.
Ageless people, yeah. He's got the Joan Jett syndrome.
Yeah, and then of course you've got kind of the headliner for the whole weekend, which is Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger. To anyone who doesn't know, and he's going to be donning the Freddy makeup one last time, apparently. Well, it's apparently it's the first time that he's done it since Freddy vs. Jason, which was 10 years ago.
Yeah, 2003. Wow.
I went and saw that. I got a free ticket to go and see the premiere of Freddy vs. Jason, and we maybe can talk about that in a different podcast.
Yeah. No,
but
I saw it in theaters too. It was quite an experience.
Yeah, I just
because it was the first theatrical Freddy or Jason movie I'd ever seen in theaters. And,
okay.
Yeah, and I think because I never saw Jason Goes to Hell in cinemas or anything else. So yeah, it's pretty big.
I thought the best thing about that film, apart from having them fight and stuff like that together, was that final shot where Jason's carrying Freddy's head.
Spoilers alert.
Spoiler alert!
In case everyone listening's probably already seen it, but
yeah, I mean, it could happen at any time in the film, but it was that was just it was one of those classic moments, that it really stands out. But so yeah, unfortunately, it's quite expensive to get along.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. There's a lot of controversy about this in the US right now. The biggest thing is the $365 price tag, because apparently some of it's going towards charity, cough, and the charity is a drive-in theater, so people don't even consider it real charity. But honestly, how much money do you need for a drive-in theater? $365 per person, and sold out. So
Well, the thing about that price as well is that it's that is for the entire weekend to go and meet Robert Englund, have your photo taken with him in the Freddy makeup. And then some of that goes to the drive-in preservation drive, which is obviously what they're trying to raise funds for. And in some ways, I can totally respect that because I've never been to a drive-in.
Yeah, and there's none left.
Yeah, and apparently there were quite a few here in Australia.
Yeah.
and I would just love to go. And so any kind of film preservation, whether it's preservation of film or preservation of cinema, theaters or even drive-ins, I think is great. Would I drop $365? It's tough. If I was really into the two actors that are there for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 reunion, maybe, but I just don't know if I could part with that kind of money.
Yeah, I definitely, and possibly for Children of the Corn, because I do like that film in a strange sort of way. It would be good to see Freddy in for the last time, because I'm obviously, and I think yourself, you're a huge Nightmare on Elm Street series fan.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's worth it if you were, it's a niche thing, and I'd say it's worth it if you're into that kind of thing.
That's right, because I think the last, because you got your Friday 13th fans and your Nightmare on Elm Street fans, and you usually find one that parts towards one series more than the other. Personally, growing up, I was a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan. Because I think the supernatural elements dragged me in more than Friday 13th. But as I got older, I appreciated Friday the 13th more. So I guess for myself, I would probably drop that money. But once again, it's a maybe.
Yeah, I side with you. Definitely, I was more of a Nightmare on Elm Street fan, but some of the Friday the 13ths are really, for all their production values and all that, it's still a creepy idea. And it's still, I was just going for a walk in the bush the other day, and I just thought, I wonder if I saw Jason. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. It would creep me the hell out. But yeah, I think there's enough there. Lance Hendrickson, Robert Englund, some of the Q&As, if you're into it and you really love it, that's your juice. That's really what you're into.
Yeah, and there's one other quick thing. I think the Stars of Phantasm are having a live concert or something.
They are, and they're doing a screening of Phantasm, and they're also doing a screening of Death Spa, which we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
That's right.
Oh, and also Demons.
Demons. Oh.
Yeah, they're doing a screening of Demons. So
awesome.
There's enough there. 3 days worth. I'd say it's money well spent if that's what you're into.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really cool, and the screenings alone would be worth it. You have to see these movies with a crowd. I mean, honestly, I would love to see them with a crowd, but unfortunately we do live in the Southern Hemisphere, where the luckiest we will get is Friday the 13th at Event George Street Cinemas, and that was a very rare occasion to see that with a crowd, and it was very fun, I'd say.
Was it just the first one?
Yeah, just the first one.
Wow, that's great.
I know. That happened a month ago, I think. Yeah.
I didn't know.
No, I should have told you, James.
No.
What was I thinking?
That's all good.
Movie you've already seen a million times. Yeah.
This is true.
But it was 35 mil anyway.
Wow.
Cool. So that's pretty cool. I must admit, there's a few pretty interesting things happening, and obviously, if we lived in the US, I'd definitely go to the US. Maybe not do the Freddy Opp, but go just for the Texas Chainsaw reunion, because I love Part 2. I think it's the greatest horror sequel of all time. Anything else you have to mention on the Flashback weekend?
No, that's about it. I think Zach Galligan's a little bit out of his depth from Gremlins. But I mean, I love Gremlins, so if I was there, I would definitely go along and maybe get a photo with Gizmo. Yeah,
that would be and also from, I can't think of her name, from Bad Dreams, she was also in Nightmare on Elm Street 3. She's going to be there as well.
Yeah, okay. Is this the punk chick?
Yes, the punk chick. So
okay.
That gets the needles in the arms.
Yeah, no, I'd be sold just to go and see her. She was always my favorite from that film. So
from the Dream Warriors, I think it was.
Yeah. It's when it really started to kick into the whole kind of. There was the video game guy, but when she transformed into the punk chick.
Yep.
I just thought that was great. Is that Rennie Harlan, right?
Yeah. Oh, Jennifer Rubin.
No, the director Rennie Harlan did that one.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I love his work, and I just thought that was a great sequel.
And because it was actually written by Wes Craven, so that's why it was good.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Wes Craven had some involvement, unlike the second movie, which had no involvement. And yeah, we can leave that for another day.
Yeah.
Some very strange underlying themes in Part 2, but anyway.
Look, you can't talk to me like that. Jesse, come back here. Jesse!
Ken.
Come back here, Jesse!
Ken, stop it. You're being ridiculous. That's
Jesse!
all. Stop it.
Moving on, I guess our main part of the show tonight is we're going to focus on basically soundtrack vinyls.
What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle. Living stereo, played on a record.
I know this is kind of your field, James. Is there anything you'd like to say?
I just think soundtracks, whether it's CD or on vinyl, are an amazing thing to not only collect, but to just sit down and listen to by themselves when they work. When they, some soundtracks you buy, you're kind of like, I just need to see the screen, or the action playing out. But I love music, and soundtracks are usually the heart and soul that drives a lot of story and character and action. Mm-hmm. And I think that they probably still don't get as much kudos as they deserve. Mm. So I really want to, and hopefully bring it to the site, a little spotlight on soundtracks here and there.
I think that you're right, because what they're doing, a lot of these companies, there's a large amount of hype in the Blu-ray world for what companies like Arrow and Scream Factory are doing for horror movies, but there's not enough around companies who are doing it for vinyls, because essentially Death Waltz, I see them as like the Arrow Video of vinyls, because they're remastering all these soundtracks, and really obscure ones that you just thought would be lost and forgotten.
Yeah, absolutely.
Full treatment. So I guess we'll just go through like some of our favorites. Is there anything that stands out to you, James?
Well, I recently, definitely from Death Waltz. Death Waltz is an American company who is pressing a lot of vinyl these days, especially in the horror and cult genre. So they've done the remake soundtrack to Maniac. They've done a repressing of Goblin's Suspiria, Godzilla, Ms. 45, which I believe you have.
Yes, very nice vinyl.
They did one of Assault on Precinct 13,
yes,
which is John Carpenter's, people stuck in a police station. And the one that I got recently was Let the Right One In, which is one of my favorite films.
That was the soundtrack to the original movie or the remake?
No, it was the original.
Original, yes.
Which is still the best.
Yeah, it is.
It gets said quite a lot. But I personally never thought that I would see this come out on vinyl, and I was absolutely stoked, and I was probably the first person to press buy on it, and I was not disappointed. The packaging is beautiful. It's got original artwork. It comes with a poster. And that's something that a lot of these labels are coming out with, is that they're really putting in 125%.
Yeah, with the gatefold and just
gatefold, original artwork. Some of them glow in the dark. You've got vinyl that's mixed colors.
And when it spins around, it's quite hypnotic.
Yeah, I mean, you got. Did you get the Chopping Mall one?
Yeah, Chopping Mall. Yes, from Waxwork. Yeah.
And what color was
that?
Your vinyl?
I got I actually ended up going for the pink one because it's extremely fluorescent pink and it's see-through. It's transparent, so it's just extremely unusual. So I went for it. And that's a problem I have. I was going to mention was with some of these companies is you debate on which vinyl color you're going to get because they usually release variations of them.
Yeah,
and it's always a tough choice. I'm like, which one do I buy? Both or just buy one of them? And
by the time you've decided, one of them's already sold out, right?
Out on the site, yes.
Yeah. What was the you had another one that you were buying that I know that was very, very quickly sold out.
That was the Creepshow one on Waxwork. Yeah, that's all. And also the City of the Living Dead from Death Waltz, the limited edition one, sold out like in a few minutes.
I think I think all of this kind of collectible stuff is fantastic, and I buy a lot of vinyl, whether it's kind of commercial, normal music, but and some of them come out in different shades of red and pink and clear vinyl, but no one is doing it like these labels.
Yeah, because what we can do, we can go through the labels. I guess focusing on Death Waltz, their releases, the original ones, when I first heard about them, they started out releasing. I think their first release was Zombie Flesh Eaters on vinyl, and to take the effort to remaster these scores. And I think companies, how they see it is they see a horror soundtrack or just a soundtrack as, you know, something on its own that can be enjoyed on its own. It doesn't need to be with the film.
Yeah.
And I think that they're 100% right, because most of these I find most enjoyable just to listen to than actually have a film accompanying it.
Yeah, well, a lot of, especially with horror films, the soundtracks, maybe in the 80s, they were a little bit more synth-driven, or,
Yeah.
you know, they were what we, you know, a lot of people would go, oh, that's got such a cheesy soundtrack. But some of them that they're picking are really atmospheric, and they don't intrude on what you're doing. You can put them on, you know, and still read a book or cook your dinner, and and it's just really, it just adds, you know, it doesn't, you don't have to specifically listen to it, but it adds a soundtrack to your life, basically.
It does. I mean, some of these, like, I find that especially Death Waltz, they tend to focus on a lot of Italian horror as well, because you've got, obviously, like I said, just to name a few, City of the Living Dead. You've also got Zombie Flesh Eaters. You've also got The New York Ripper. A lot of Fulci films, House by the Cemetery. And a lot of those soundtracks, the American ones, which you probably know were very synth-based, like, you know, they also released Slumber Party Massacre, funny enough, which is, I got that vinyl, it's very synth-based. But the Italian ones, like, these are like full orchestral scores. Like, these are actual full-on scores. Like, they're not cheesy synths.
Yeah. They just did the Room 237, which is the soundtrack to the documentary about the theories behind The Shining as well, which I am a freak for, so I'll definitely be looking at getting that. And they're really actually quite affordable too.
Yes. And I was just on 237, I think the artwork's stunning. It's so unusual. It's got like this sort of square red rectangular box pattern. Very unusual. But yeah, price-wise, I think they're very affordable. And you can order direct from Death Waltz, or, funny enough, if you order from Amazon UK, if you live here in Australia, they take the VAT off, the VAT, so you get the VAT taken off, and the shipping from Amazon UK is only about, I think, like $8 or something, so it's really reasonable.
Yes! Very good.
Extremely reasonable. Are there any, so I guess, like, focusing on Death Waltz, you've let the right one in. I myself personally, I've got the Miss 45 soundtrack, and a few others. I've got House by the Cemetery. I've also got the They Live one, which is I love the artwork to They Live. It's got the alien creatures on the front.
Yeah.
And the another thing with They Live is, because I listen to They Live soundtrack, and I forgot. It's kind of interesting how you watch a movie and you kind of ignore the soundtrack. You don't ignore it, but it's there in the background. But when it's the focus of attention, it sounds completely different.
Absolutely.
Because They Live, the soundtrack that is amazing. It's because in the movie it sounds a bit cheeny, a bit corny, but when you listen to it, it's just, I took it very seriously and I respected it as a score.
It's really getting two for the price of one. Really, you've got a film that you enjoy that has a great score, and then you've got a score that you can enjoy outside of the film.
Exactly. I think just, and, focusing on packaging, I think I like how they get custom, basically commissioned art for most of these releases. Do you have any favorite artworks that come to mind from Death Waltz? Or any at all that come to mind?
Well, the City of the Living Dead, I think, is fantastic. It's, you've got a priest hung with his arms outstretched, with his hands on fire, with all of these skeletons kind of all over there. I think I don't have it, but that would look awesome. And even the Godzilla one, which has some commissioned artwork, has a classic Godzilla. The Goblin one is actually the same artwork of the original pressing, which I have. And I'm not sure if they have the same packaging, because if you open up my Suspiria, it's got a pop-out inside.
Pop-out? Wow.
Yeah, so you actually open the vinyl, and it's like a pop-up book.
Wow.
Which is awesome.
But
they do have also a range that kind of has a minimalist feel. So my Let the Right One In has a kind of a black packaging with a blue outline, and then the artwork is very sparse. So they do mix it up from the very, very detailed stuff to some very, very sparse artwork, which I think it makes any record collection very, very interesting to browse through.
I noticed that because some of their early releases had that sort of minimalistic flat design, and then it seemed like it started getting much more advanced as it progressed. I think there was obviously Let the Right One In. There was Escape from New York, which was once again very minimalistic. Let the Right One In's minimalistic. Prince of Darkness is very interesting cover as well. It's kind of a flat sort of image. But it suits the soundtrack, I guess.
What's the Halloween one with Mike Myers with the nurse's cap?
Yes,
that is awesome.
With the blood coming down his eyes. Oh,
yeah, that's
gorgeous.
Just really, really cool.
And that is also on a black. I've got that one, and it's a black and orange vinyl as well.
Yeah, orange tinge to the end, right?
Yes. To around the tips.
Yeah, it's kind of like an eclipse sun or something like that. That's awesome.
And they also did the Halloween 3 Season of the Witch one, which was kind of like TV static, like on the front. It's
what?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Just like the Happy Halloween, little commercial that went through the minds of children. So
awesome. I'll have to check that out. Definitely
gorgeous. And just check them out. And they also do exclusive little bundles. So every so often they'll have a subscription pack pop up, so you'll get an exclusive vinyl which isn't available as a standalone. You have to get it in the bundle pack, and they come around once every quarter. And there's some pretty unique releases in there. Like if you subscribed, for example, I'm trying to think, you would get, I think with Halloween you get an exclusive completely orange vinyl, if I was correct. If you were a subscriber, so
cool. I can see it was £60. For the last one, which was a bit of a record store day exclusive. So that was, I think, 4 vinyls. And that's not too bad either.
Yeah, 4 of them. My favorite release so far, personally, is the Slumber Party Massacre release, just because I think the artwork is just gorgeous. Like, it's all neon pink. You've got every little key item from the movie on the front. So you've got a drill, a cassette player, a phone. It's just a unique package, and exclusive to their website is the green one. So there's only 4 left in stock. So
yeah, that's the I'm just seeing it now. It's awesome.
It's a pretty nice, and the back of it I love about when you flip it over. They don't show it on the site, but it looks like an old vinyl straight out of the 80s, black and white, simple photos. Very, very well done. So the front's very modern and the back's very vintage. So
I think Death Waltz is the kind of label that really gets things like VHS packaging, and the whole presentation of what it was like to chuck that VHS on and watch the film. But obviously you'll be listening to it, so it's very, very cool.
It is. It just suits the time period as well. But yet I know what you mean. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like a sort of modern vintage take on music, and it fuses the both of them together. One other cool one I was going to mention was recently I believe they sub-licensed one for Beyond the Black Rainbow, and you're quite a fan of that movie, to my knowledge.
Yeah, what a trip, man. That was it definitely has its roots in kind of 70s psychological horror, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's I'd be very cool, very keen to get that soundtrack, definitely.
Yeah, and I love the artwork's just so amazing. It's just got the girl in the chair with the long black hair looking in a mirror, and it's pretty freaky, but beautiful artwork. Cool. So I mean, Waxwork as a whole. Not Waxwork. Death Waltz as a whole. Is there anything else you've got to mention on that?
So there's Death Waltz. Death Waltz. They're doing a 100% awesome job. One of their other contemporaries would be Waxworks.
Yes.
And they've recently done reissues of scores like Rosemary's Baby, Day of the Dead, Reanimator, Chopping Mall, Creepshow. Like, they just managed to get these licenses, and they're just, again, running in exactly the same way as Death Waltz. They're presenting them beautifully and doing a great job.
It's the thing about Waxwork is the thing about Death Waltz is you actually have a chance of getting their releases, but Waxwork, when they sell out, they sell out. They're like gone within like a minute, and it's very cool but frustrating at the same time, because I missed out on the Reanimator one and Day of the Dead. Thankfully, they've announced they're doing reissues of those two, so they're coming back into print very shortly. So I'm gonna be up at 3 a.m. whenever it is when the pre-orders are up.
Yeah, I think it's a measure, really. They do this to kind of measure how popular it is, because to produce vinyl is expensive.
Yeah.
And then to hold on to vinyl that doesn't sell is also very draining on your finances. So they're doing probably the smarter thing by, teasing people, not teasing people per se, but, saying this is a limited edition and maybe we'll produce it on a regular black vinyl.
Yeah, I think it was, like you said, I think it's just finding their market, the first few releases. And
exactly. Yeah.
When they found it, it was just, they'd sell out on the spot. They also, one of their releases, the one I have is Creepshow, and that's probably one of the most beautiful vinyls I own, because you open it up and it's got like a full actual book inside, which you can go through the pages, and the custom artwork is stunning, and it just sums up the movie so well. And I love what they did for their vinyl colors. They had a color for each segment of Creepshow. Yeah, because there were 5 segments. The first one was the birthday cake, the blood splattered birthday cake. So they made a white and red birthday cake one. The second one was the sort of green, meteor green, where Stephen King becomes like this green monster. Yeah. So they made a green vinyl. They did a blue one for the Leslie Nielsen story with where he drowns those 2 people and they come back to get their revenge. And they did a grey and red one for the crate story with the beast that lives in the crate.
Yeah.
And finally, the one I got, because it just looked so cool, was the brown, cockroach brown, for the final story with this, basically a clean freak who lives in an apartment and these cockroaches just come out and attack him. So,
cockroach brown, that's something that you wouldn't take down to your local hardware store and ask for the paint, right? What are you thinking for your lounge? Yes, cockroach brown, please. But the vinyl, it would be cool. I've never seen a cockroach brown vinyl. So again, really kind of pushing the boundaries of what color you should have on your turntable. I think it's great.
Exactly. Yes, delicious cockroach brown. You've also got coming August 26th. They're actually going to be doing Friday the 13th soundtrack. So that's a big one. It's a pretty because that's an awesome score in general.
And will you be partaking?
Yes, I will be. I'll be one of those up at the crack of dawn in Australian time, pre-ordering, because obviously in the US, luckily they get to do it in the afternoon. We get to do it at 3 a.m. in Australia, so yeah.
It's lucky we don't sleep.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, I must think, all of these guys that did these scores, I can't even, off the top of my head, I can't tell you who scored Friday the 13th or Creepshow.
Yeah.
But to be able to have that second life in this new age of re-vinyl, man, you'd just be sitting there going, man, I didn't see this coming ever again.
No.
I think they must be absolutely chuffed.
They must be. And another thing I was going to mention was a lot of these titles have been out of print and extremely rare for years. I think like the Creepshow vinyl has been going for on average about not the reissue, but the original was going for like hundreds of dollars on eBay just alone.
Well, I recently got my the soundtrack to The Shining on vinyl. I got an original pressing for an absolute steal, but I went on eBay and they're going for £90, and I just could not imagine buying that on eBay for £90, and I got it for like $25 and laughed all the way home.
Yeah, and I mean, it's reasonable what they're asking for, especially the Waxwork. I mean, they only ask about $20 per release, and what you're getting is a stunning vinyl with a lot of effort put into the packaging. The packaging alone makes it worth it. I mean, even if you're a collector of just say along the lines of comics or Blu-rays, just the packaging, even if you don't have a record player, I mean, these things are really, really impressive. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and if you don't have a record player, do something about it, because you should be playing these as well.
Tisk tisk.
No.
Yeah, and also obviously they did the chopping mall one, so I was able to. There was either green or pink, so I went for the pink one just because it suited the '80s vibe personally, and I just felt like it was just the neon pink, transparent, and that's still available, thankfully, on their website.
Yeah, it's going for $26, which is a steal.
Yeah, considering.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, considering this has never officially been released. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And Rosemary's Baby is only $27, which, fantastic score.
Yeah, classic. Anything Polanski.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a side note, if anyone's a fan of Mike Patton from bands like Faith No More and Phantomas actually covered the Rosemary's Baby's theme on the director's cut, which, if you haven't heard it, it's a fantastic take on a great soundtrack score.
Really?
Oh, man. It's so good. So good.
Cool. Awesome. So, I mean, yeah, Waxword, check them out. Their stuff's available on their site. Same with Death Waltz. And obviously, you can find Death Waltz. They tend to release their releases on Amazon. Waxwork's a bit more exclusive to their site, so you do have to kind of go through them. And they do ship internationally, thankfully, which is good. So, for us locals.
Definitely.
Cool. One other one I was going to mention. Have you heard of, you may have come across them, but Mondo, Mondo Art.
Yes.
Yeah. Mondo also do vinyl. They've been doing a few recent reissues of vinyl. They did one for, they did a Halloween one where it was just a plain white cover with Michael Myers' face.
Yes.
That's one that's also that went out of print pretty quickly. But Mondo Tees, they do vinyls, just on a side note, for curiosity.
They're actually doing a really, really cool thing coming up, which is they're doing 7-inch singles of the Batman animated TV series.
Yes.
4 different vinyls with different artwork, but it's just the opening and closing credits, which, if you've seen the Batman animated show, it's done by Danny Elfman, who did the first 2 Batman films, and it's the perfect Batman theme. I think. So to be able to get that on a vinyl, I'm really jonesing for that.
Yeah, when I saw that, it just suits the Saturday morning feel to it with some of the artwork that they do. The whole 4 of them is and they're only $15 each US, I believe, on their site. Not terribly expensive at all.
No. And Mondo is, if anyone knows Mondo's work, it's definitely instant. It's Mondo.
Yeah,
and all of their stuff is amazing,
and it tends to sell out pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
They also did a few other releases. More recent ones was Here Comes the Devil, The Omen, which I love the artwork. It's like these skulls in the ground. Gravity, they did. Paranorman, Caroline, I love that film. And Jurassic Park soundtracks as well.
And also, have you ever seen Blue Sunshine?
Yes, I was leaving that to last.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No. I was going to mention they did the Blue Sunshine soundtrack. That is an odd cult film.
I've never seen it, but I know it through just images and stuff like that, and I'm really, really, really excited to be able to watch this. And I'll be seeking out the Blu-ray if it's available very, very soon.
I think another thing on the vinyl, it's got this beautiful blue artwork with this character looking through like a peephole. It's an odd film. It's kind of because I've got the DVD of it, the local. It actually came out here in Australia on DVD, funny enough. And you've probably seen the iconic like sort of image of a woman's head, like bald head with like blue around it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, how can I describe it? It's a thriller. It's a detective sort of drama of him trying to track down these cult members. They were essentially, they took this drug in the 60s and it's kind of reacting to them now and they're going nuts. People used to take it, so it's an odd film. It's very odd.
Very cool.
But very good, very good. Very offbeat. I loved it.
Cool. I'll look forward to that.
Yeah. I noticed that on your Facebook you posted a Thing soundtrack.
Yeah, that's luckily enough for me, I went to a big sale and I managed to get a beautiful Ennio Morricone, The Thing original score, which is really a thing of beauty. And again, it's one of those atmospheric scores that isn't in your face. It's very, very slow and building, and just to find that on vinyl, I was very, very surprised. So there'll definitely be a reissue of that coming out fairly soon, I'd imagine, if it hasn't already been. But he's one of my favorite composers, and I'm just really chuffed to have found that. And I can't remember. I think that may have been on the. Hopefully, I say this correctly. It may be the Varias Sarabande label, which is quite famous for producing some, scores. From the 70s onwards, they were really spearheading music soundtracks. So I check that on every now and again, just to kind of, while I'm cooking food or if I'm doing my taxes, a good horror soundtrack kind of makes the day a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, especially tax time.
Yeah. Don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, you never know. Speaking about focusing on, while we were on composers, are there any favorites, like any soundtracks that are particularly your favorite?
Well, I grew up on Star Wars, so John Williams is going to be, right up there with pretty much all of his work. And then I would say you've got Jerry Goldsmith, who did The Omen, again, recently reissued on Mondo. Dominus. Yeah, and again, covered by Mike Patton's band Phantomus, which, John, I'll have to get you a copy. It's just so very, very good. Jerry Goldsmith. Sorry,
I thought I heard you. I thought I heard you playing it when I was out the back. I was like, well, is that Omen music playing in the?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I play it, and everyone's like, "What the hell are you listening to?" But I love it.
Just some morning music.
Oh yeah, no, anytime.
Have a cup of tea with, yeah.
No, in the shower, buying your persimmons or your kale or anything like that. Always listen to some thrash metal versions of some great soundtracks.
Yes.
But Jerry Goldsmith also did great stuff like Alien, Planet of the Apes, Total Recall. These composers, they seem eternal. They go through the 70s, 80s, and 90s, all the way up to today. Michael Kamen's Highlander soundtrack is amazing.
Yeah, Highlander.
John Carpenter,
that's what I was going to mention.
Carpenter. Yeah, I mean, I'll let you riff on John Carpenter for a little bit.
Yeah. No, Carpenter, the thing I find interesting about him is how he directs he directs his own movies and composes the soundtrack, which is very rare. And most of his soundtracks he's done himself. Like, we do The Fog, Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, obviously Halloween 1 and 2. I still think the Halloween soundtrack's my favorite of his. It's so catchy and so eerie, and it's such an iconic soundtrack.
Yeah.
Every time someone's ringtone has the Halloween soundtrack, you know what it is. You know where it's from.
Yeah.
And it's just his soundtracks are they're just it's so unique. That's what I'm going to say for a director to direct and compose. Any thoughts on Carpenter?
Well, I think again, it's unique, and it's very, very. It shows how much he is so dedicated to the project.
Yep.
Because a lot of those films that he may have written himself, and then again, it's just like from A to Z, those films are completely stamped with his thumbprint.
Yeah.
And that to me is a passion project.
Yep.
That. When you get a classic like Halloween or Escape from New York, you're just like, man, he can. I don't know how old he is now, but when he eventually passes, hopefully he'll get a lot of the kudos for all of the extra things he did for those films.
Exactly.
We don't even know what else he did. He could have been. I know that he was very hands-on with his effects and stuff like that. So. To be able to score as well. I don't know have you ever seen the extra on Ghosts of Mars?
I've seen the movie, but that's as far as I went.
Yeah, there's a great extra of him doing the music with Buckethead. And for those who don't know who Buckethead is, he's a guitarist who wears a bucket of KFC chicken on his head. And it plays really amazing shredding guitar. So if you've got the DVD of Ghosts of Mars, maybe just check out the special features to watch that itself. It's amazing.
Yes, I haven't visited that movie in probably 10 years or so, 11 years, because that was when I was like, oh, so this is what John Carpenter has become. Oh, Ice Cube on Mars. Okay, all right. Ice
Cube is touring. If you see Ice Cube in Sydney or anywhere else in Australia or around the world, say, yo, I checked you out in Ghost of Mars. I thought you were brilliant.
Best movie role to date.
Yeah, definitely.
Much better than anything else he's done. Yeah.
But I was talking about Let the Right One In before, and I didn't mention that the composer's name is Johann Soderquist, and he's done a lot of European film soundtracks.
Okay.
And I see him being a bit of a rising star, along with Johan Johansson, who did the soundtrack to Prisoners, who you spoke about on a previous podcast, who is also... Prisoners was directed by the same guy who did Enemy.
Yes.
Which we've reviewed on the site. So I definitely urge people to check out Johann Soderquist, Johan Johansson, and my personal favorite, Cliff Martinez, who did the Drive, Solaris, Traffic, Kafka scores. And hopefully we might be able to put some links up on the site about some things to listen to, because soundtracks really connect. Yeah, just add so much to your time when you're really not even expecting to listen to music.
Exactly, and I was just going to say, you've got Drive on vinyl, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got a beautiful pink Drive double vinyl, which is actually going for a pretty penny these days. But again, it's being produced by different companies, so you could probably pick one up relatively cheap.
Did you find that at that vinyl fair?
I did. What is it? The Glee Point Road Record Fair that happens twice a year.
So I remember you were like, "Hey, look what I found!" It's like, you got the Drive soundtrack. I was like, oh.
Well, the thing is, I've been listening to Cliff Martinez since 2001 when the Traffic soundtrack came out, and he's only really just coming into his own as far as people listening to him, and he is absolutely awesome. And he's doing a soundtrack to a new show coming out called The Nick. And if you like atmospheric music, also that puts you on a bit of edge, I'd really, really recommend checking out Cliff Martinez. He's it's a joy to listen to.
Just trying to think of any other composers that I like in the European genre, because obviously myself, I do love my Italian horror. One of my favorites is Fabio Frizzi, and Fabio Frizzi, he did the soundtrack to a lot of Lucio Fulci films, and he's actually, his Zombie Flesh Eaters soundtrack was released by Death Waltz, and he does a lot of orchestral scores, like fully epic and unexpected for such low-budget Italian horror movies. But his work is really original, and I think the Beyond soundtrack, which he did, is probably my favorite of all horror soundtracks. It's the most eerie and yet catchy soundtrack I've ever heard. Same with Zombie Flesh Eaters. It's got this sort of like deserted island feel with like bongos and drums. It's very offbeat and very eerie for the most part.
Cool. Was that Beyond?
The Beyond.
Oh, The Beyond. Okay.
The Beyond, yeah. It's not really, like, obviously within the world of horror, Fulci films are kind of even people consider themselves horror fans really don't know much about Fulci's work, because it is pretty obscure, and The Beyond's another one of those movies that it's a cult film, and I think the soundtrack is what makes it work so well.
Yeah. Wow, I'm just looking to buy a copy of the CD of The Beyond. You're looking at upwards of $60.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty
for a
standard.
CD as well.
Not even
That's
vinyl.
Crazy. That's amazing, and it shows the rarity and the collectability of even CD soundtracks.
Well, that's the thing, and Mondo released the Beyond on vinyl, so that vinyl's extremely rare. I'm talking like 150 plus or 200 upwards.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's got a beautiful image of this woman on a bridge with a dog. Yeah, if you see the movie, it's very unusual. But his work's very good, I must say, Fabio Frizzi. And obviously another big one would be Goblin, because Death Waltz reissued all of their work.
Yes, yeah, pretty much, yeah, a whole bunch of stuff.
I saw them play in Sydney last year, funny enough.
I know, and I didn't. Yeah,
That's right. And I was mocking you with my tickets.
yeah, I really dropped the ball on that one. Yeah, it was a dumb thing to do.
Well, the thing about the night was when I went, basically the first half of it was really obscure stuff. Like, they were playing soundtracks to Sleepless, and all the fans were like, all right, come on, can you play like the classics? And then finally, towards 3/4 at the end, they actually played like Dawn of the Dead, Suspiria, and all the classics, and Tenebrae. But for the first 3/4, I was like, oh, what is this? Come on. Like, I don't care about your original work. I want to hear the soundtracks.
Well, that's how it was advertised, right? It was like they play Suspiria.
Yeah. And it was like 2 minutes at the end.
But what, I was under the assumption that it was going to be played along with the film.
Yeah, they did play film clips.
Oh, and so not the...
No,
it wasn't
no.
like what... Oh, I thought it was like watching the film.
No, it was clips.
Okay. Because I know they've done that with things like 2001: A Space Odyssey here in Sydney, where they've played the whole film with a symphony orchestra.
Yeah, the entire film. No, this is just clips.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe you're not so disappointed you missed out.
Well, no, I am still disappointed because Goblin, a fantastic band. Like I said, I've got the Suspiria soundtrack, and it's awesome.
Yep.
So if they ever come back through your town, would you recommend going to see them?
Yeah, I'd say it was worth it for those clips alone. Like, it was quite an experience, and you're surrounded by people who get the genre, so
Yeah.
it's great. Interesting. The people who see Suspiria, like, I know someone who I recommend it to at work who saw it, and funny enough, the first thing that he said was, "Oh, I really like the soundtrack." That was the main thing. Like, the movie's kind of secondary. They're like, "Oh, the soundtrack was incredible." So I think it's really a drawing piece of these films. And the problem I find, like, for example, you mentioning how good the Thing soundtrack is. To be honest, when I watch the movie, because I'm so distracted by the film and the sound effects, the score tends to just be put aside. So I really like to re-listen the whole soundtrack from start to finish.
Well, the things are really... It's a special thing because everything in that film is just so well done. You know, you've got the effects, the special effects, which are still kind of unsurpassed as far as practical effects, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
The sound design, which, you know, definitely matches the special effects, and then the acting. You know, there's something about the Thing that really hits every note perfectly.
It is. It's a classic in its own regard, and it's a very underrated Carpenter film. And when it first came out, I think it was virtually ignored, to my knowledge.
Well, unfortunately, it was up against films like E.T.
A Friendly Alien. Yes.
Yeah, and also I think Poltergeist came out the same year.
Yeah.
The same summer, and also Blade Runner maybe came out the same summer.
Same time period, yeah.
So there's actually a lot written about that year, which would have been, what, 1982?
Yeah, it was yes, that's right, because The Fog was 81.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff about that summer that basically everything points towards E.T. being the death of every other great film around that time. Because you just couldn't compete.
You couldn't, and another thing was the death of essentially the sort of vicious alien type of film, because I think from then you used to have this kind of spawn of sort of comedies, alien horror comedies, like Gremlins started spawning, but that sort of the Thing was one of the last few like essentially horror based alien films, like intensely like freaky aliens. But
oh yeah, and I mean if that's the end of it, then what better way to go out, because that is the absolute high water mark. something they couldn't replicate with the remake that they did a few years ago.
Yeah, I've avoided that at all costs. I haven't seen the remake / prequel.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't.
Oh, John, you have to see it. Like,
just to see it. All right.
Just to see it.
All right.
And then put the two together. You know, I don't want to. I'm not going to say anything bad against the remake or anything like that. But oh my god, you know, it just you just take your DVD off the shelf or your vinyl or you know however, or even if it's a framed photograph of Kurt Russell off the wall with his beard, and you just want to just give it a big hug. It's just it's so good. And the remake tried very hard, but really, it's again Attack of the Remakes. Do we need any of that?
That's the problem, and that's the reason I avoided that movie, because it was caught up during the remake trend. And after virtually being insulted by the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, I kind of avoided remakes. And unfortunately, the Thing remake came out around the same time the Nightmare on Elm Street remake came out. And because I was so disgusted by the Elm Street remake, I avoided the Thing remake. So I'll give it a chance.
Well, you'll be very, very pleased to hear that the Monster Squad remake by Platinum Dunes. I don't know if you're familiar with the Monster Squad.
Yes, and obviously the wonderful work of Platinum Dunes, masterpieces they've created.
Yeah, but this Monster Squad remake has been quashed. It's not happening.
Oh, what a tragedy.
Yeah, but everyone's kind of like, yeah, great, cool. We're not going to, have another shitty film that we have to watch. So it's kind of, I think they get the message now that they probably need to either do the research better, especially with Platinum Dunes specifically. But yeah, we're not going to have to endure somebody else shitting on your childhood memories, really.
Yeah. Well, so but just quickly, we'll just finish up some news and some of the remake news as well. Is there anything else you want to mention on soundtracks? I think we covered it pretty in depth, especially the main distributors out there.
Yeah, there are a couple of other labels that I just wouldn't mind throwing a bit of a shout out to. You've got Invader, which is a UK-based label. It's actually founded by one of the members of Portishead, a trip-hop band you probably heard.
Yes.
They've done reissues of Solaris by Cliff Martinez. They also did a Drive on vinyl. The new film Under the Skin, which has a fantastic score. There's also La La Land Records, who do a lot of great reissues and remasters. Music on Vinyl, which is a label that you've probably seen flicking through the vinyl in your local record store. They've got The Bride of Frankenstein. They did a Taxi Driver reissue.
Oh, cool.
The Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man, by the way. And also they've got a new X-Men Days of Future Past coming up on two awesome coloured vinyls. So yeah, those labels are the ones to really I recommend looking out for. And if you see a soundtrack at your secondhand store or your local store, think again, and think, is this, maybe I should buy a soundtrack on vinyl instead of buying Nicki Minaj or something.
Or
terrible.
Justin Bieber.
Yes. Yeah, so buy vinyl, buy soundtracks on vinyl, and if you have any recommendations, please throw us an email of any of your favorite scores.
Yeah, because we'd love to hear about them as well. One other company I was going to mention was One Way Static Records.
Yes, I wrote that down.
Big one, I know, UK-based one, and they released. I'll let you take the floor, James. But they released obviously Last House on the Left, The Hills Have Eyes soundtrack, the original, not the remake, Cannibal Ferox, just to name a few. And they're actually coming up with a few pretty cool ones like Witchboard soundtrack. And
yeah, no, these guys, they seem like an absolute one of those real deal film, and especially in horror, just junkies, and they're really, really dedicated to bringing these things back on a great vinyl reissue. So, like Death Waltz, like Waxworks, I just can't recommend them enough as far as what they're trying to do and bring to your ears. It's not, they could press their own vinyl, listen to it all day. but they're doing it for us. So yeah, I think they're doing a great job
for the fans. And one other cool thing I was going to mention is they actually released cassettes, limited cassettes, just for a little nostalgia.
If you've still got a cassette player,
yes.
I've got an R2D2 shaped Walkman.
Oh, nice.
So any cassettes that I get coming through the mail will be going straight into R2D2, which is awesome.
That's incredible. And one other thing they're releasing is, for example, upcoming Phantom of the Opera soundtrack, the original 1925 soundtrack. They're reissuing it on vinyl. That's pretty obscure stuff. Like going to that territory to remaster a film that's 90 years old is just crazy.
Would that even be in copyright anymore?
It'd probably be public domain.
It's awesome.
And the soundtrack, the cover's beautiful. It's grey. It's hand sketched. It shows Lon Chaney. What's his name?
Lon Chaney.
John Chaney, yeah, of course. Senior's face in front. So it's beautiful. Cool. So, anything else? Any other shout outs or?
No. Just buy soundtracks. They're very, very good for your health.
Yes, they are. Good for your health. Vinyl is good for your health and your mental health. Everything.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I think that I've kind of covered all the main labels, and we hope that you've learnt a thing or two about vinyl soundtracks. Obviously, James, he's quite passionate in the whole vinyl collecting world, so he's the go-to guy if you want to shoot an email through the website. Don't hesitate to. We'll put a post on the Facebook wall. We're more than happy to listen to any feedback you have to say.
Absolutely.
Cool. I was going to say something about remakes, but I forgot now. So I think that's about it.
We can save it for another cast.
Yeah, we'll do a remake rant cast. The abomination, the 2000s, the abomination of horror films.
Absolutely. Yeah. That'd be great. I would look forward to
that. Cool. So I think that's about it. I think I really enjoyed speaking about vinyls because I think it's like I said, there's VHS collectors, there's Blu-ray collectors, and for those who are in that niche market, vinyl collecting is just another territory you can explore, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
And it's growing too, because you've got collectors that look for original pressings, and then you've got these great labels that are coming up with all this awesome stuff, and there's no end to it. That's even if vinyl goes out of fashion tomorrow, you can still go back and find some amazing finds.
Yes, I completely agree. So finishing up, I guess one of the things we're going to cover is upcoming reviews on the site. So we try and focus on reviewing Blu-rays locally because we feel as if there's a complete lack of that within this country, within Australia. So the film that I'll be reviewing coming up soon, I'll be focusing on Nebraska. I'll be doing a review on that. Apparently it's one of the... Funny enough, I feel terrible. I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard nothing but good things about it. And also I'm doing a review of Branded to Kill. That's a Japanese film from 1967. That's from Arrow Video, and that's a very surrealist film that was very far ahead of its time and influenced Quentin Tarantino and Jim Jarmusch.
Wow.
Yeah, very incredible. It feels like, it was 30 years ahead of its time. Yourself, James?
I've got a bit of a retro kick coming up, first of all, which is a film called Bound, which is directed by the, I suppose I have to say, brother and sister team.
Siblings.
Of the Wachowskis. Famous for bringing The Matrix to the cinema, and also famously shot here in Sydney. Mm-hmm. And that is something I'm really, really looking forward to revisiting, since I haven't seen it when it came out since 1996, I think. It's kind of came out during that period of, very sexy cinema. So you can look forward to a good review of that coming up, and also one of the more recent films that's come out, Inside Llewyn Davis, the Coen brothers, folk love letter, I suppose. I haven't seen this film. I know people that have seen it, and with any kind of Coen brothers film, there's a lot of diverse opinions. So I'm really looking forward to getting my own opinion in there and seeing how it goes.
Awesome, very, very cool. And I I just love anything Coen Brothers do, so I'm sure it'll be great. I mean, they've yet to disappoint me. Even Hudsucker Proxy, people tend to hate. I love that film. I thought it was great.
I don't even think I've seen the Hudsucker Proxy, but
It's very rare as a film.
Tim Robbins?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, okay. The only film that kind of divided me actually was Burn After Reading.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Because I think, to me, there's a lot of people that they go, it's like the tide. It's like, the moon and the tides. You've got people that love Oh Brother, Wherefore Art Thou? And then, along with that, you've got, God, what's the one with Josh Brolin? It's just escaping me right now.
Oh, Coen Brothers, Josh Brolin. Yeah, same. Mental blank.
Oh my God, ridiculous. Anyway, I'll be throwing all of the Coen Brothers under the bus and judging it against Inside.
No Country for Old Men, of course.
No Country for Old Men, yes, which my friend's been teaching at her secondary school. So they're very influential, and I'll see what this film's like and give you my honest take. Yeah,
very cool. Awesome. So, and obviously we've got a lot more reviews coming on the site. We've also, hopefully, we'll be doing some reviews for Monster Pictures, which is a Melbourne-based company that releases, a lot of modern indie sort of cult horror, pretty obscure stuff. I think that one that tickled your fancy was Disco Exorcist.
Oh, Disco Exorcist, I'm very, very into. I'm really, really excited if I get a chance to see that. I mean, the title says it all. It's one of those films that you're just kind of like excited just by the title.
And big ass spiders.
I've seen it.
You've seen it, yeah.
I think Arachnophobia was the high watermark for spider films, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else? Any news you'd like to bring up, or pretty much?
Well, obviously, if you're into the genre, I think Marilyn Chambers has to get a bit of a shout out.
Editorial here. That's actually Marilyn Burns. Sorry about that.
Fuck you, you fucking fucks.
It's Marilyn Chambers, right?
Fuck you.
Marilyn Chambers, yes.
God damn it.
Yeah, star of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, yeah,
away.
Of course. I shocked about that.
Yeah, I mean, she was only 64. I'm still not aware of the details of why or how she passed away, but when you see a film like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I saw it by myself while my parents were out eating dinner, I managed to get a copy and chuck it on, and that's, the film itself is such a visceral, roller coaster ride of just pure terror. And for her to carry, the second half of that film basically by herself, I think is an achievement. And knowing the production, what went on to get that film made, and what she didn't do after that, she's really only known for that, right?
Yeah, I don't think she did a few little obscure, like low budget horror films, but nothing terribly noticeable. And it was she did movies every few years, like 3-5 years. So yeah,
it's just very anytime you lose somebody that's a part of a film that has such an amazing reputation and fan base, as that, and especially like you said the other day on the anniversary, what is it, the 30th or 40th?
40th, yeah.
40th anniversary.
Yeah, with the 4K restoration.
Yeah, I'm really looking for. Have you seen the packaging for the Blu-ray release?
Yes, with you mean the one in the US with Leatherface?
No, there's like a cardboard cutout of a truck.
Yes, that's the local one. Yes.
Is that the local one?
Yes. Yeah.
I thought the truck was a strange choice.
With the dead, like the dead animal on the road?
No, I'm talking about like a box that is shaped like a truck.
Like a truck?
Yeah,
I've only seen the US one.
No, look it up. It's quite impressive, but it's also kind of a bit strange.
Truck.
But she went through a hell of a lot. If you've seen any of the documentaries about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, anyone that was either cut or burnt or had rope burns or anything.
That was real, folks.
That was all real. She went through all of the screams and stuff. I guarantee are actual. I can't wait to get this out of my. I can't wait to finish this picture. Screams.
Yeah, that's what makes it so genuinely terrifying. Is because it's got that documentary feel to it, and it feels like you're watching like real on-screen horror and torture. It's psychological torture.
Yeah, it's a film that I can watch, but I always kind of question myself before I put it on.
Yeah, same. And nothing's come quite close to it ever.
No, nothing.
Nothing ever will.
No, I don't think it can. You take what was it filmed on? Was it 16?
Like 16 mil, yeah. Really.
It's
going to be odd to see it in 4K because it just won't feel right, if you know what I mean. Because I'm used to, when I saw it first on VHS, the print was horrible, but that's what made it so frightening because at the night scenes you could barely see anything because the print was so crap, but that's what added to the sort of frightening nature of it.
Yeah.
It felt like you were watching a real documentary.
Yeah, it's like you just borrowed some horrible little homemade film from some heck out in the woods somewhere. So yeah, it's really sad that she's gone, but this is something we're going to have to get used to in the coming years from all of those films that we love.
Yeah, and Marilyn Burns, sorry.
Marilyn Burns and Marilyn Chambers.
Porn star.
I think she might be a porn star.
Yes.
Okay, well that's a different story. She
From
might be
her.
dead as well. Who knows?
She is actually Marilyn Chambers. Yeah.
Yeah, but probably didn't die. I don't know.
No. Her what was it? Insatiable movie, I think. Yeah, there. I just remember seeing her face on a lot of video box art back in the day. So yeah, she was all over the adult section. And as a kid, the horror section used to be next to the adult section, so you used to take a bit of a peek. You couldn't help but take a bit of a peek. So,
They had the plastic curtains that those kind of strip curtains.
Yes, some places had that.
I couldn't even make it past my maybe 2 feet into my horror section because I saw the Demons cover, which if anyone's seen that with the kind of screaming girl with the veins in her face.
Demons 2, yes.
Is that Demons 2?
Yeah. That used to scare the hell out of me as a kid. Oh.
And also, what was the one? It was a retake on the Snow White film with the wolf, Company of the Wolves.
Company of Wolves, the English movie, yes.
Oh my god! It took me about 20 years to watch that film, and I'm glad I watched it, but it's just as terrifying as the original cover art.
Isn't it like a wolf coming out of a girl's skin?
Yeah, it's really... And if you see that when you're like 6 years old looking for the Transformers video, man, it puts an impression in you and it just messes you up. I'm really messed up by that.
That explains why a certain generation was scarred. Thanks to video covers.
Yeah, no, werewolf films have never been something that I'm really comfortable with, but that's another cast as well.
Werewolf films, excellent. Cool, so I think we'll wrap it up now. I think we've mentioned anything else, any other news? I think that's the main...
No, thank you for having me on. I hope I haven't rambled too much.
No, of course. You were great. You were great.
Awesome. No, great to be a part of the team, and look out for all the reviews and just keep checking back to the site for anything interesting.
Yeah, and obviously we want you to be part of the... You're going to be a main guest, so James is going to be one of the main guests on our shows, along with...
Yes.
Along with Glenn and I, so it's going to be the three of us. And we're going to be trying to do this weekly and get these podcasts out to you as soon as possible. In the best quality possible as well. So
sweet.
Cool. All right.
Thanks, John.
No worries.
Ciao.
See you later, guys.